You tap your phone to buy coffee. You click a button and a package appears at your door. You send money to a friend across the world with a swipe of your finger. It's instant. It's seamless. It feels like magic. This invisible, weightless digital flow of value is the backbone of our modern world. But was it always this easy? This abstract? The journey to get here is one of the oldest, most dramatic stories in human history. A story of salt and shells, of kings and criminals, of trust and technology. So, how did we get from trading cattle to trusting code? The evolution of payment is more than just a history of money. It's a story about the evolution of an idea, the idea of trust. Each leap forward, from the first objects used as currency to the complex digital systems of today, was a new answer to a fundamental question. How can we create a system of value that everyone believes in? In the next minutes, we'll journey through 6 pivotal chapters of this evolution. We'll see how the limitations of one system directly sparked the invention of the next, and how our concept of money transformed from something you could hold to something you could only promise, and finally, to something that exists only as pure information.
Chapter 1. The Age of Things. Barter and Commodity Money.
Our story begins over 8,000 years ago, in Mesopotamia. Before money, there was barter, the direct exchange of goods and services. If you were a farmer with a surplus of wheat and you needed a new pair of shoes, you had to find a shoemaker who wanted your wheat. This fundamental problem is called the double coincidence of wants. You have to find someone who not only has what you want but also wants what you have. It's incredibly inefficient. Because of this, large-scale trade was nearly impossible. Commerce couldn't grow beyond small, localized exchanges. Now, within a very small, close-knit tribe, life might have operated more like a gift economy, a system of informal debts and favors. The potter might just give you the pot, with the unspoken understanding that you'd help him repair his fence next week. But to trade with a stranger from the next village, that required a different system. The solution was a breakthrough: commodity money. Instead of trying to directly trade my chickens for your pot, we both agree to trade for a third universally desired item, an item that has its own intrinsic value. What was used as money tells you a lot about what a society valued. In agricultural societies, it was often livestock or grain. In parts of Africa and Asia, it was beautiful and durable cowrie shells. The Maya and Aztecs used cocoa beans. In colonial Canada, beaver pelts were a primary unit of exchange. And in ancient Rome, soldiers were sometimes paid in salt, sal in Latin, which gives us the word salary. These weren't random objects. To work as money, a commodity had to be durable, easily measurable, portable, and relatively scarce. This system was a huge leap forward. It created a shared language of value, allowing for indirect exchange. The shoemaker doesn't need my wheat, but he'll accept salt because he knows he can use that salt to buy wood from the carpenter. For the first time, trade could scale beyond immediate neighbors. But this system had its own flaws. Cattle aren't easily divisible if you only want to buy a loaf of bread. Grain perishes. And how do you ensure the quality is consistent from one bag of salt to the next? Humanity needed a better, more standardized form of money.
Chapter 2. The Invention of Trust. Coinage.
The next monumental innovation came around 600 BCE from the kingdom of Lydia in what is now modern-day Turkey. The Lydians were rich in electrum, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver. Using precious metals as money wasn't new, but it was cumbersome. For every transaction, you'd have to weigh the metal and test its purity, a slow process requiring expertise and special tools. The Lydians had an idea that would change the world. What if the king himself guaranteed the weight and purity of the metal? They began taking lumps of electrum of a standard weight and stamping them with a royal seal. These were the world's first coins. The power of this idea was not in the metal, but in the stamp. The stamp was a message, a promise from a central authority that said, "I, the king, guarantee this is real and it weighs what it should." People began to trust the stamp, which dramatically lowered the effort and risk of every transaction. This innovation separated money's value from its purely physical properties and tied it, for the first time, to trust in an institution. It was a fundamental shift from trusting stuff to trusting systems. The idea spread like wildfire, adopted and perfected by the Greeks and later the Romans. Rulers quickly realized the power they held. By putting their own faces or symbols on coins, they could project their authority across vast empires. In an age without mass communication, coins became the first form of mass media. Every time a Roman citizen in a distant province used a coin, they saw the emperor's face, a daily reminder of who was in charge. Greek city-states used their coins like advertisements, boasting of their patron gods, local heroes, or key exports, like the grape clusters of Maroneia. Of course, as soon as there was official money, there were criminals trying to fake it. Counterfeiting became a serious crime, punished by beheading in China and other severe penalties elsewhere, a testament to how crucial trust was to these new monetary systems.
Chapter 3. Money Takes Flight. Paper and Promises.
For over 1,000 years, money meant heavy metal. Carrying large sums was difficult and dangerous. The next great leap required a different technology, and it came from the one place that had mastered it: China. During the Tang Dynasty in the 8th and 9th centuries, merchants began using privately issued bills of credit as receipts for their heavy coins. They called these notes fakian, or flying cash, because unlike coins, they could blow away in the wind. By the Song Dynasty around the 11th century, the government recognized the power of this idea and took it over, creating the world's first official government-issued paper money and official red seals being stamped. The scene then cuts to an animated Marco Polo arriving in China, his eyes wide with astonishment as he watches people exchanging these simple pieces of paper for valuable goods. When the Venetian merchant Marco Polo visited China in the 13th century, he was astounded. He saw an entire empire conducting business with pieces of paper made from the bark of mulberry trees, accepted by everyone as if they were pure gold. This was a profound cognitive leap. A gold coin is value. A piece of paper represents value. It's an IOU, a symbol, a promise. This is called representative money. You're not trusting the paper itself. You're trusting the institution's promise to honor that paper and exchange it for real money, gold or silver coins, on demand. The idea eventually spread to Europe in the 17th century, where receipts from goldsmiths who stored precious metals for wealthy clients evolved into the first European banknotes. To maintain trust and prevent the temptation of simply printing endless amounts of paper, countries eventually adopted the gold standard. Formally established in the 1870s, this system meant a nation's currency was directly backed by, and convertible into, a fixed amount of gold held in its vaults. This great abstraction of money, turning it from a tangible asset into a trusted symbol, unleashed economies. It provided a flexible money supply that helped fuel the Industrial Revolution. But it also created a new set of problems. As soon as governments could print money, they were tempted to print more than they had in gold, especially to finance wars. When that trust was broken, the paper became worthless. This was the birth of inflation and hyperinflation as modern policy problems. The invention of paper money also invented the fundamental tension of modern economics: the need for a flexible money supply versus the need to maintain stable value.
Chapter 4. Plastic in Your Pocket. The Credit Revolution.
For nearly all of history, the rule of commerce was simple: no cash, no purchase. The next revolution would sever that link entirely. It began, as the story goes, with a moment of embarrassment in a New York restaurant in 1949. A businessman named Frank McNamara had finished a meal with clients only to realize he had forgotten his wallet. Determined to create a solution, he and his partners launched the Diners Club in 1950. It was a simple cardboard card that allowed its members to dine at participating restaurants and pay the bill at the end of the month. It was the birth of a powerful new idea: pay later. The Diners Club card was a charge card. The bill had to be paid in full each month. But in 1958, Bank of America took the idea a step further. They mass-mailed the first general-purpose credit card, the Bank AmeriCard, to customers in California. This card allowed users to revolve their debt, carrying a balance from one month to the next and paying interest on the amount owed. That card would eventually evolve into the global network we know as Visa. The plastic revolution was supercharged by a key piece of technology from the 1960s, the magnetic stripe, which could store a user's account information and be read by a machine. This all happened as money itself was making its final leap into total abstraction. The gold standard, which had anchored paper money to something physical, was abandoned by most of the world by the early 1970s. For the first time, major currencies like the US dollar were no longer a claim on gold. They were valuable simply because a government decreed them to be legal tender. This is fiat money, from the Latin for "let it be done." Its value is based on nothing but collective trust in the government that issues it. Credit cards fundamentally separated the act of buying from the act of having the money. This fueled the post-war consumer economy, allowing for unprecedented levels of spending and growth. But it also introduced the widespread phenomenon of personal debt, changing the financial lives of millions.
Chapter 5. The Digital Tsunami, the Internet and Mobile.
The idea of sending money electronically is older than you might think. Western Union was wiring money via telegraph as far back as the 1870s. But the rise of the public internet in the 1990s created a new world, a global marketplace filled with complete strangers. How do you safely send money to someone you've never met on the other side of the planet? In 1998, a new company was founded to solve this online trust problem. That company was PayPal. By acting as a secure digital middleman, holding the money until both parties were satisfied, PayPal made e-commerce viable for the masses. It quickly became the default payment system for auction sites like eBay, fueling the explosion of online shopping. The wallet had been getting thinner for decades, from heavy coins to light paper to thin plastic. The smartphone was about to make it disappear entirely. Early mobile payments in the late 90s and 2000s used text messages or special fobs to pay for things like Coca-Cola from a vending machine. But the real game changer was the combination of the smartphone with technologies like near-field communication, or NFC, and the simple QR code. In 2011, Google launched Google Wallet, and in 2014, Apple launched Apple Pay, securely placing a digital version of your credit card right onto your phone. The physical token of payment, which had defined money for its entire history, was suddenly no longer necessary. Money had become pure information. And this new world of digital information created a new layer of power. Historically, the infrastructure of money, the mints, the central banks, was run by governments. Today, a vast private infrastructure of payment is run by technology companies. Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Apple, Google, they are the new gatekeepers of commerce, processing trillions of dollars and shaping our economic lives.
Chapter 6. The Final Frontier, Crypto and the Future.
Then, in the midst of the 2008 global financial crisis, as trust in the traditional banking system faltered, a new idea emerged from the shadows of the internet. An anonymous person or group using the name Satoshi Nakamoto published a white paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. On January 3, 2009, the network went live. Bitcoin's core innovation is a technology called the blockchain. It's a public ledger of every transaction, distributed across a network of thousands of computers, all secured by advanced cryptography. For the first time, it was possible to send value directly from one person to another, anywhere in the world, with no bank, no credit card company, and no government in the middle. In 2010, the first real-world transaction took place when a programmer bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 bitcoins. At the time, it was a novelty. Today, that amount would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. This is the new frontier. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin propose a radical new form of trust, not in a central institution, but in mathematics and a decentralized network. Meanwhile, governments are now exploring their own central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, which could digitize fiat money itself. The technology is always changing, but the fundamental story remains the same. From a Lydian king stamping a piece of metal to the Chinese government guaranteeing a piece of paper to Satoshi Nakamoto writing code, the evolution of payment has always been a relentless search for a better, more efficient, and more trustworthy way to exchange value. The way we pay defines our world, and its evolution is far from over. So the next time you tap your phone to pay, remember the thousands of years of human ingenuity that made that simple act possible. What do you think the next chapter in the story of money will be? Let us know in the comments below.